In Honduras, the public ministry started an investigation on the finding of millions of expired medicines in warehouses of the Ministry of Health. Russia-Belarus joint military drills partially concluded, according to Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu. Israel's siege of Palestinians took another life. A Palestinian teenager was killed and 20 others were injured by Israeli gunfire during a military operation by their occupying forces in northern West Bank. Hi, this is From the South. I'm your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. On Monday in Honduras, a public ministry started an investigation due to the finding of millions of expired medicines in warehouses of the Ministry of Health. The Special Prosecutor's Office for Transparency and Fight Against Corruption, who will be in charge to carry out investigations and determine the expiration date of medicines and people responsible for it. The announcement was made after the new Minister of Health, Jose Manuel Mateo, revealed on Friday the finding of expired medicines worth $8,700,000 in warehouses. This fact occurs in the midst of a wave of corruption accusations against former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, and days after the United States classified Orlando Hernandez as a corrupt official. The Peruvian Congress will debate on Monday the accusations against a number of legislators for alleged influence peddling. The Parliamentary Ethics Commission is expected to start at 5 p.m. local time a session on the accusations made against Congressperson Americo González of the Peru Libre Party, who is accused of participating in meetings held at the government palace with state officials in exchange for family benefits. The case of Congresswoman Chirinos from País will also be evaluated for having offended the president, Pedro Castillo, in November 2021 during his participation in a political demonstration, and the congressman from Fuerza Popular, Luis Cordero Yontay, for an alleged accusation of harassment of his ex-partner. Congressman Jorge Montoya from Renovación Popular Party will also be investigated for accusations against the Minister of Culture, Isel Ortiz, of having alleged terrorist links. Peruvian archaeologists found 6 pre-Inca mummies of infants dating from between 800 and 1000 before Christ. Alongside the mummies of the 6 children, they also found the skeletal remains of 7 adults who, unlike the infants, were not wrapped in bundles.
We are finding the remains of sacrificed children that are associated with a mummy. We are talking about an individual that presented a very advanced, very sophisticated mummification process, so sophisticated that we can see how this has been preserved for so many years. But it is also the oldest evidence of children sacrificed in large quantities associated with the burial of Anneli Carter.
Now, on Monday, the trials for crimes against humanity continue. This time, another former military is put in the crosshairs due to their roles as perpetrators of tortures in the clandestine detention center known as Pozo de Arana in Argentina during the military dictatorship of 1976 to 1983. Miguel Osvaldo Echecolatz will stand on the accused seat as a witness. Report from a process back in 2006 placed him in center stage at Pozo de Arana. The witness, Jorge Julio Lopez, one of the detainees who survived the illegal acts against his physical and moral integrity, testified against Echecolatz back then and has been missing since. Another former member of the repressive forces, Julio Cesar Garachico, also faces the accusations for committing crimes against humanity inflicted on Lopez and 6 other people in Pozo de Arana. The new trial proves how difficult and obstructed the procedures have been in a fight that's lasted over 15 years. Despite Lopez's disappearance, the judiciary of Argentina declared his testimony valid and will pursue the claim. In Puerto Rico, the Teachers Federation will rally in defense of salaries and a fair retirement. The union affirmed the protest will take place on Tuesday. The demonstration will leave from Luis Muñoz Rivera Park in San Juan City to the Legislative Assembly. This movement has the purpose of communicating the discontent of the public sector to the President's proposal of the House of Representatives to vote again on Joint Resolution 278 with the purpose of paying $10 billion in an expeditious manner to the bondholders. This measure is an act of betrayal to the working class, since its approval will result in freezing and cutting of pensions and increasing retirement age for teachers from 55 to 63. In Panama, the Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture rejected the high cost of medicines in the private sector, a situation that affects all families in the Central American nation. According to the report presented by the business group, the response to excessive prices is to promote measures that stimulate supply of all types of medicines with the approval of the health authorities. In this sense, they reject the imposition of any regulatory measure on the price of medicines, considering that it would reduce investment and could harm consumers. A study by Central American Competition Policy Group and the Inter-American Development Bank revealed that in Latin America, Panama is a country with the lowest availability of general pharmaceuticals. This Sunday, the Argentine journalist Horacio Verbitsky published a report disclosing details of the participation of the Argentine army in a multinational military exercise led by the United States to intervene in Venezuela during the 2019 siege against the government of President Nicolás Maduro.
During 2019, Venezuela was the target of multifaceted international maneuver aimed at overthrowing the president. At the time, the hegemonic media narrative justified international intervention in the country by arguing a supposed humanitarian crisis, while at the same time positioning a parallel presidency, personified by the then opposition deputy, Juan Guaidó. Under the guidance of the United States, Argentina, with Mauricio Macri as president, has been part of the so-called Lima Group Peru since 2017, which support the thesis of a military intervention based on a controversial interpretation of the Democratic Charter. The climax of the crisis was the so-called Battle of the Bridges, a military operation that attempted to penetrate the western state of Táchira from Colombia in order to create a beachhead in Venezuela territory. Horacio Verbitsky's report revealed this Sunday that Macri's government deployed a large-scale military exercise to participate in the invasion, while publicly ignoring President Maduro in the framework of the political media operation led by the Lima Group. The so-called Puma exercise, led by Argentina General Juan Martín Paleo, commander of the Rapid Deployment Force, was carried out in 7 sections, with the participation of large contingents of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The plan envisaged the penetration of Argentinian troops into Venezuela via Colombia. The military plot against Venezuela involved the participation of forces from other nations and hoped for the United Nations resolution that would justify the action, which in the end was never issued. The objective of the multi-front operation, planned primarily by President Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, and Elliot Abrams, was to provoke the surrender of the Venezuelan military forces and control power with a minimum cost. Yet throughout the siege, the Bolivarian armed forces remained loyal to the oath. During hearings before the Ministry of Defense, General Paleo justified that the Puma exercise was aimed at planning the security of the G20 summit in Buenos Aires, a summit that took place on 3rd November and 1st December 2018, months before the exercises. With the exception of General Paleo himself, the Argentina military commanders who took part in the Puma exercise were dismissed from service when the current president Alberto Fernandez came to power. New information shows the magnitude of the plan that was hatched against the Bolivarian nation, and consequently the size of the victory that the Venezuelan people, together with the international allies, achieved in 2019.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Despite Western allegations of an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine, Russia-Belarus joint military drills partially concluded, according to Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu.
Are on their way. Part of them are completed. A part is ending. Some things need to be done, given the scale of the exercise that had been planned and started according to your instructions back in December.
And despite the U.S. calls about a mounting Russian presence in Ukraine borders as well as an alleged imminent invasion, Russian citizens are calm and confident that there will not be a war with Ukraine, a nation they consider strongly bound to Russia.
In the West do not understand that we are one people, and we have 50% of relatives there and 50% here. If there is a war, it will be a civil war. Nobody wants a civil war. Therefore, this is a delusion.
I don't want there to be a war. I want us to live as before, peacefully and friendly, for all the people to be peaceful, calm, and never to fight again. They should think about their grandparents and grandmothers who fought in a war, who lived through it, so that there will be peace on earth.
In Paris on Monday, the stock market plunged 3.3% amid crisis in Ukraine plus systematic U.S. claims of an alleged Russian invasion of Kyiv. The fall was registered between 220 and 236 points, closing below 6,790 euros, in line with the stock market fall registered in other European Union nations such as Germany, Spain, and Italy. The Parisian market already suffered a drop of 1.27% on Friday due to concerns about inflation and the central bank's responses to it. The scenario worsened amidst fears generated by Washington's accusations against Moscow of an alleged preparation by that country to carry out an invasion in Ukraine, claims that have been repeatedly rejected by Russian authorities. On Monday, China's President Xi Jinping and Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador exchanged congratulatory messages to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationships between the two countries. Now, in his message, Xi noted that both China and Mexico are countries with time-honored civilizations and history, and the friendly exchanges between their people date back to ancient times. Since China and Mexico established diplomatic relationships half a century ago, especially since they forged a comprehensive strategic partnership beginning in 2013, bilateral relations have been developing on a fast track, said Xi, adding that the two countries enjoy ever-deepening political mutual trust and enhanced friendly exchanges and cooperation in several areas. The Peruvian judiciary barred Repsol executives from leaving the country due to their involvement in the oil spill considered the biggest ecological disaster in the Andean nation's recent history. The 18-month travel ban issued by Judge Romualdo Agüedo on Friday prevents 4 executives of the Spanish oil and energy company from leaving Peru. This includes Repsol Peru's Spanish President Jaime Fernández Cuesta Luca de Tena. A United Nations expert mission concluded a report in the event, estimating that the consequences will affect the environment of the Central Coast for 6 to 10 years. At least 11,900 barrels of spilled oil have covered more than 1,400 hectares of sea and land, as well as more than 500 hectares of marine fauna reserve protected natural areas. Now, so far, the Peruvian government has imposed a fine that pales in comparison to the damages caused by the catastrophe. Meanwhile, the judicial process continues. Brazil's Vice President Hamilton Mourão acknowledged that the deforestation alert figures for the Amazon issued by the Institute for Spatial Research are true. According to the study, deforestation in the Amazon reached more than 13,000 kilometers in 2021, an increase of 22% over the previous year. In this sense, the vice commander also admitted the inability of the Bolsonaro government to act in a forest region degraded by extractivism. In the same context, President Bolsonaro has been accused since 2019 by environmental activists due to the growth of deforestation in the Amazon. We're going to take a final short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, welcome back. On Sunday, a Palestinian youth was killed and 20 others were injured by Israeli gunfire during a military operation by their occupying forces in northern West Bank. The events occurred at midnight in the village of Silat al-Harithia near the city of Jenin. Palestinian Health Ministry confirmed that Muhammad Akram Abu Salah, age 17, died of head wounds caused by Israeli gunfire. Health authorities denounced occupation forces prevented ambulances from entering the locality to treat and transfer the wounded. The repressive episode took place after Israeli troops besieged the village, blocking all its accesses to demolish a Palestinian citizen's house, which provoked a strong resistance from the population. According to local sources, the teenager's funeral will take place on Monday.
We thought there was a wedding because we saw lights. We asked, what's going on? And we were told there was a martyr. Who is the martyr? We didn't know. There was a martyr and there were wounded people. Then we found out through people on Facebook that the martyr was our son.
At least one death and multiple material damages from Turkey's bombing of northern Syria happened on local media quoted it occurred in the town of Aynisa in the northwestern province of Hasake by the Turkish force inside the country without the consent of the government and the United Nations. It also reported how Turkish military used artillery places in their bases to open fire on 7 towns in that municipality, leaving material damage to civilian properties and agricultural lands. The Syrian government denounced its occupation the continuous conflicts taking place between the so-called democratic forces of Syria allied with Washington and Turkish military, leaving multiple victims and damages, assuring this deters their nation from complete liberation of terrorism. The 18th shipment of humanitarian aid from Iran arrived in Afghanistan on Monday. The diplomatic representation of Iran in Kabul indicated that the cargo consists of cooking oil, flour, rice, and medicines, blankets, and warm clothes. The humanitarian aid is destined for the most needy people in 8 provinces in the country. Persian assistance arrived in Afghanistan to notify the collection of $1 million for that Asian country. According to the United Nations, half of Afghanistan's population suffers from acute hunger, and more than 9 million are victims of internal displacement as a result of the United States occupation for more than 20 years. In Khartoum on Monday, Sudanese security forces fired tear gas at protesters rallying against last year's military coup and the arrest of several political figures and pro-democracy activists. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in the capital against last year's military coup and arrests of several political figures. Regular mass protests rocked Northeast African nations since the October 25th military takeover, which derailed the country's rocky transition to civilian rule following the 2019 ouster of the autocratic President Omar al-Bashir. According to witnesses, protests also happened in other parts of the country, including the eastern city of Port Sudan and in the western Darfur region. In China, the government will donate $100 million to the WHO's COVAX initiative to promote equitable distribution of coronavirus vaccines worldwide. The Asian giant has recently donated $100 million to COVID-19 Global Access Fund for vaccines, boosting the production and distribution of the SARS-CoV-2 immunizer. China already donated more than 100 million doses of anti-COVID vaccines to developing countries in the past, in addition to those provided to the International COVAX Initiative for Equitable Global Vaccination. The COVAX system was created with the aim of promoting equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, especially in low and middle countries. In the Dominican Republic, vaccination of children between 5 and 11 years of age against COVID-19 will begin this Monday, subject to parental consent. According to the Minister of Public Health, Daniel Rivera, the vaccine for the infant population is well discussed and agreed upon in several meetings by the different specialized medical societies in the country. The immunization will be applied in all the educational centers of the 18 regional divisions and the 122 educational districts in coordination with the health authorities. The Pediatric Society is informed about the benefits offered by the administration of the vaccine, which so far has not generated any health problems whatsoever. Now, we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.